Welcome to On the Bench. I'm your host for this episode, Brendan Sano, and I'm joined by Zach Blostein and Chris Nees, camped out in the FSU parking lot bright and early here on Sunday morning because it's going to be a busy day for Florida State's recruiting efforts. Day two of the transfer portal. Day one was a bit of a grind already, and day two is going to provide some clarity at the quarterback position, I think, or at least take steps towards doing so. So before we get any further, a shout out to our sponsors. First off, oh God, Chattanooga Whiskey, crushing it in the craft distillery game. They are fantastic with how they do their experimental stuff, but their baseline bourbon is really good as well. They market at a really high rate too. Like, this is just a beautiful, unique bottle, the cork on top, and yeah, everything they do is pretty cool, different. Not your average type of bourbon, which is a big reason why I was drawn to them so long ago, and continue to hold it near and dear to my heart. And then our buyer's known sponsor is
the Turner Group.
Chris, your energy is actually pretty darn good right now, given the circumstances. What do you test that to? What do you attribute that to? Sorry, wrong word.
Attribute what to?
Your energy.
I don't know. Coffee, probably.
Okay, sorry, Colin. The Turner Group, Colin, Amy Turner, really great people, hustle at a high rate in getting the home buying process done as smoothly as possible. You're in Central Florida, throughout the state of Florida, Colin, Amy Turner can help you get literally where you want to go. I don't know how many sorry Collins I owe for that, but it's a lot. That's a lot. All right, guys. Right now, Florida State is expected to host, again, Sunday morning here, 2 quarterback transfers. What time we're still working on? There's a lot of murkiness these days operating from the new football-only facility. But alas, 2 quarterbacks. Number one, the big name, the highlight, one that really evolved yesterday in terms of reporting and just getting confirmation and just a name that got put onto the radar. And now here we go. DJ Lagway is visiting Florida State. This is not a simulation. This is real. Florida's 2-year starting quarterback is now visiting Florida State, former number 1 overall recruit in the country. Yes, Florida State has done this before. A number 1 overall recruit named DJ, who played for a rival, did come to Florida State a couple years ago. You might remember that. This is a little different in the career arc, however, and we're going to talk about that. The other quarterback, Anthony Colandrea, still expected to visit as of, I checked last night, and he's the UNLV quarterback, Conference Player of the Year, former Virginia quarterback as well. Very different types of quarterbacks, different points in their career, different styles. I don't know who's being leveraged against whom right now. There's a lot of questions that we have, but we're here to try to work through it together, guys. Chris, your initial reaction to us hearing the DJ Lagway just name yesterday. Yesterday morning was the first time we heard it. And if you want to take through just the simulation-esque day that was, to where we got from hearing the name to Zach confirming that there was a visit.
Well, if you remember back when Lagway first shared plans to enter, I think CBS Sports had to report that FSU was going to be one of the schools in the picture. And I remember thinking back to then that, yeah, they're going to do their due diligence on pretty much any and all quarterbacks that enter, because they're in the market for a QB1 at least in this go-around in the portal. But I was dismissive of it at that time. And truthfully, yesterday when it started evolving, it was like, you got a heads up about possibility of him being on campus already. We checked on that, did not believe that to be true. And then it evolved into he's coming in the next day as the day wore on. I find it very weird, personally. I don't think he fits what Gus Malzahn does. He's coming off a, 14 interception season. He has 23 interceptions in 2 years. There's an element of watching him last year, having watched a decent amount of UF games during the season, where he looked kind of broken and like a guy that was going to get benched. And I know you're allowed to improve. You're allowed to get better. You're allowed to return to the form that you once were thought of. And he was obviously thought of very highly. But it just struck me as weird. And it struck me as weird because of how he produced a year ago and also how he fits into what Gus Malzahn largely tries to do and certainly did here last season.
Zachary, same question to you, because you really ended up taking the lead on the reporting of this, and so you were able to get confirmation. But I think you used the word simulation earlier in the day, and that felt apt.
Yeah, I mean, when I found myself on the phone with DJ Lagway's dad confirming that he was expected to visit Florida State, I mean, I was just like, what timeline are we living in? He's a rival quarterback who just signed with Florida and played there for 2 years, and he's thinking now of playing for FSU. It's, I mean, it'd be one of the craziest Big Three transfer acquisitions I think ever.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that would be
Daryl
close.
Jackson is probably like the other big one for Florida State.
Yeah, I mean Richie Leonard was not quite as.
Yeah, we just don't really see that many high-profile moves from one Big Three program to another.
Who was the hoops player a year ago or 2 years ago, Chris?
Matthew Cleveland.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is just a whole nother level, and yeah, I mean, at first I had kind of, and I know Chris shared this sentiment too, is like I thought that the whole DJ Lagway smoke was potentially to try and move, Anthony Colandrea's decision like up and to kind of, move things along, because that recruitment got off to kind of like a slow start, just because it sounded like FSU was not looking to budge on their offer, but that Colandrea's camp or representatives were looking to get him more money. My take is that like I think Anthony Colandrea like wants to end up at Florida State, but that like the holdup is obviously the money there, and I mean maybe this is an extreme version of Florida State trying to leverage their way into a better deal with Anthony Colandrea, but I mean, to go as far as to bring in DJ Lagway, which is what was expected as of Saturday evening, is a whole another thing. I mean, you're bringing a high profile portal quarterback on campus. What I'm interested to see is, do both of them end up making it to campus? If they do, when are they on campus literally at the same time? Because that would be hard to believe.
Well, there is some precedent for that. If you remember, a couple years ago, Cam Ward was here and leaving, and about an hour later, DJ Uiagalelei was arriving.
Trains passing in the night.
Yeah. So this has happened before. I love the idea. I liked it back then too, of having them just do the visit at the same time and really just like get a sense of like who's the alpha, who isn't. I think we would have known last time who the alpha was, that they were both in the room at the same time. But I digress. I like that idea. See who really wants to be here, It's like in Batman when they break the pool stick and he's like, we have opportunities for expansion.
This feels like an inflection point in Florida State's portal quarterback search.
yeah, you think. And then there's a third quarterback, but I think that's more of just like a back Ashton Daniels, and that's not today.
Yeah, that's on Monday. Ashton Daniels, former Auburn quarterback who struggled a lot there this past year, told me that he's confirmed an On3 report that he's going to be at FSU on Monday. I think he's at Baylor right now, and Kentucky might host him after FSU.
Yeah, I think that's more of just him being a backup type of role. And we expect them to, not official yet, but for them to hire a former Auburn assistant to be an assistant quarterbacks coach as well. So there might be some connection there. Anyways, let's keep it on topic with DJ Lagway and Anthony Colandrea. I think there is, from what we can gather, a level of posturing, right, with the finances, where you're trying to kind of figure out who the best value is. I do have a belief that Anthony Colandrea would be significantly less expensive than DJ Lagway, but neither is going to be quote unquote cheap at this point. The quarterback market is going to be, to get a starting quarterback, you're going to probably have to dip into $2 million plus. Now, is it $2 million for a starting quarterback, or is it going to be $4 million for a starting quarterback? And obviously, what that buys you is that discrepancy is another couple starters potentially. And so I think that's part of what you're trying to figure out. But the styles guys, is extremely different between the two. And I think that's part of what's so intriguing with this is DJ Lagway. You go back to what his freshman season was, in the level of upside that he showed with some of his the plus throws he made. It was absurd. then there was obviously a massive regression, and I'm working on something to put at Knowles 24/7 on that now, just to kind of like, what version of this player are you recruiting? I think there's a lot of circumstances around him, but you hear like Mike Norvell talk about him. I remember this like late this past season. Mike was asked about DJ Lagway, and he actually kind of like lit up. Like I recall that I tracked that. Like that was the thing. The way he discussed DJ Lagway was different. I remember thinking to myself at the time too. I was like, well, DJ Lagway is from Texas. We know Gus loves his Texas quarterbacks. Like, there was something to that, but I wouldn't have imagined that would have led to a visit. But like, so Mike calls DJ an extremely talented player. He talked about like the injury in the offseason, and people just want to turn on the film, press play, and always go exactly how you want it to. But there's real life that happens when you miss an offseason. You have difficult situations, some of the pressures that jump onto the expectations, and what do you think it should look like? All that contributes. But I mean, you see the arm talent, you see the size, you see the ability to extend plays. He's a dangerous player to have to go against. He can make every throw. So yeah, and so he sees a lot of talent there, obviously, because it is there. The other side of that coin is Anthony Colandrea is not the same physical talent, but he's a more mobile passer, and he is capable of pushing the ball downfield. Like I think he fits a lot of what Gus Malzahn wants to do, would be a high floor guy. So really, guys, this comes down to to me, in a pivotal year for Mike Norvell, one would think, where there's a lot on the line for his career and the jobs of everyone around him as well. Anthony Colandrea, veteran, just coming off of a really good rehab year at UNLV under Dan Mullen, seems like a higher floor guy. But DJ Lagway, if he hits, I mean that's day one NFL draft talent, but he's also coming off of a regression season. And so I find this to be an extremely interesting crossroads that Florida State is at.
Yeah, I admitted this to you guys last evening. I've struggled to wrap my head around the idea of Lagway at Florida State system-wise. I think Colandrea fits what Gus Malzahn does at a much higher level. He's got almost 1,200 rushing yards in his career. I think DJ is around 230, 250, something like that in 2 years, given Colandrea has one more season than Lagway of production. But Colandrea is much more of a scrambler, speed guy, go downfield, quick in the first 10. Lagway is more of a extend the pocket, keep eyes downfield, throw it kind of guy. Mm-hmm. I think back to the FSU UF game. I mean, Lagway they were kind of check down city, and obviously you're allowed to be when you run for 350 yards or whatever it was that UF ran for. But like he made one high level throw that I specifically remember towards the end zone pylon opposite of the press box. So like the end opposite of the FSU band for people that go to the games there, that I was like, man, he still got it sometimes. Like there are throws he makes where you realize the immense talent that the young man does possess. The issue is that if you watch the entirety of last season, he has 14 interceptions. He does not look very sharp. Those throws are too few and too far between. I don't know. In a win now situation, I struggle to think I can take that guy and fix him, which is what I feel like Lagway is. With Colandrea, my only concern is that really it's a one-off of high-level success, which was at UNLV with a guy who I think is an extremely talented quarterbacks coach and offensive play caller in Dan Mullen. Like, does that replicate? Not to say Gus isn't capable of that, but I just think extremely highly of Mullen and what he did. And obviously the level of competition of a UNLV is a step below the level of competition of a Florida State. Lagway is kind of the opposite direction. The viewpoint is the level of competition in the SEC is a step higher than the level of competition in the ACC on a week-to-week basis for a quarterback. So I'm interested in some of those dynamics. I also, and you guys both alluded to this, and Zach spoke a good bit about it, the financial kind of monopoly game that's being played is the other part of all of this that I'm interested, but we're not privy enough to enough of those details at this juncture for me to really draw any conclusion upon that.
Oh, you want me to chime in? I think Kristen.
I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of just generally how it goes.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thanks for
going a little bit of a clock.
Great hosting.
Yeah, I mean, that would naturally fill it with your voice.
I kind of already gave my opinion on the situation. We have to see how this next day plays out as far as like the details of the visits. I think that'll be the most important factor. I really as far as Lagway's game, like I just in the past day or two, I haven't really had a ton of time to sit down and watch, Anthony Colandrea in depth. I watched some of the highlights that Chris sent in our chat, and then I've seen Lagway. I remembering him as a high school recruit, like he was a real like dual threat quarterback out of high school. I mean, he ran, I think, for over 1,000 yards in his senior season, which is what ultimately bumped him up to being the number one quarterback in the country by every service. So that element to his game does exist, but it hasn't existed in college to this point, whether that's scheme, whether that's, him being injured and not having that ability, or it's more hindered than it was when he was in high school. I think those are all possibilities, but that's something that Florida State needs to evaluate, because we know the Gus Malzahn offense basically scales with quarterback rushing productivity. So that needs to be an element that you add in that room as your quarterback one. And if Lagway can't provide that, then I agree with Chris. I mean, the fit is questionable for him with Malzahn's scheme. And yeah, I mean, like Chris said, the price point is the price point. Like if Colandrea is a considerable amount like less of expenditure, then I would be more on board with that than spending more heavily for the boomer bust of DJ Lagway. But if they're comparable, I could make the case for Lagway. I mean, the physical tools are all there, and I don't know what Florida State's position is, right? Like they are in win now mode, but like I thought that last year, and like they went with kind of a boomer bust quarterback in Tommy Castellano. So I'm really interested to see how this situation plays out.
One thing that I've found interesting, just as a quick aside, is I believe like the new front office hires are taking on a big role in all this, which we expected, but it's just that's a confirmation of Taylor Edwards and then John Garrett above him, kind of being the ones who are talking to representatives and being heavily in on these type of decisions. And one thing of that I think we've alluded to, but like really haven't gotten into the nitty gritty of with John Garrett, is that like the move that trifecta at Duke made to get Darian Mensah and to really roll up their sleeves and invest in a quarterback was noteworthy. And now I think you're seeing something similar at Florida State, but again, there's this posturing level going on here that we're still trying to kind of figure out of the finances and who represents the better ROI and how you build it all around them. That's all interesting. On DJ Lagway, so like one quick, like as we talk about like the drop off, some of this stuff is really interesting. I was digging into some of the advanced analytics. His big time throw rate per PFF, which basically is a big throw downfield that isn't usually in tight coverage or is a plus level throw, dropped from 8.8%, which is really, really high as a freshman, to 3.4%. Turnover worthy play got worse, went from 3% to 4.5%. So less quality throws and then more turnover worthy ones, not great. The yards per attempt went from 9.5 to 6.9, which is significant. The average depth of target fell from 11.9 yards to 8.3, and sack rate got worse, 5.5% to 6.2. Time to throw was lower too. It's like I think there was a lot of things where he's not healthy. I think the offensive line around him was worse, but he was significantly worse. And like you watch it and it looked different, but I think that's all significant in trying to kind of parse of like, I think Mike Norvell has a savior complex to an extent. I think all coaches do, but Mike sees that, he's talked about this optimism of, that's dime store psychology, but he talks about the optimism and seeing that in everything. I think he's going to gravitate towards the quarterback who he sees a lot of talent in, who he thinks highly of. And personally, I love it. Like in a boomer bust year for him, like this is very much a win or go home type of feel. Like going all in on someone with the highest variance feels like a lot of fun. I'd be extremely intrigued in what a DJ Lagway offense would look like at Florida State, and kind of just let the chips fall where they may, I guess, at that point. But we're going to see. It's going to be an interesting day of reporting, of seeing who shows up, who doesn't, and then go from there. So it'll be fascinating. The other news that I want us to get to real quick is Nehemiah Chandler, cornerback from South Alabama, actually played locally here in I guess in Wacola is where he played his senior season, but bounced around different schools throughout the Big Bend as a high school prospect, went to Georgia Tech and ended up being a really nice starter at South Alabama. But you talk about boomer and bust, like he commits to Florida State. He'll be your cornerback 2 opposite of Jabril Rawls. Interesting combination. But that dude makes a lot of plays, and he allows a lot of touchdowns too. 6 touchdowns he allowed this past year, but a fascinating athlete. So, Zach, you were in on that coverage from the beginning. Just to break down on the recruitment, kind of how you think that played out.
Yeah, well, I heard him as an option, like actually a couple weeks ago, like before he even entered the portal. Then when his name, officially went in the portal, or it was announced that he was entering, it was very clear that he was going to have a high amount of interest in Florida State. That's where he wanted to go. He had set up other visits for after his visit to FSU on Saturday. But, he told me from the start, like, if everything goes well, I'm going to cancel those other visits. And that's ultimately what happened. I mean, he visited campus. They picked him up Saturday morning, spent the day there. And then by the end of the day, he had committed to the staff. I'm told he's going to sign this morning with Florida State, which, if you don't know, that in the transfer portal, when you do that, it actually does create like a binding agreement where other schools can't continue to contact you. So, that should get done here on Sunday for Nehemiah Chandler. As far as him as a player, I mean, he's, like you said, I mean, the measurables and the movement ability are impressive, but he's going to have to kind of clean some stuff up in his game. He's just, is a risky player, and I think if you're going to rely on him at one of your starting cornerback spots, like you're gonna need to have him play at a more consistent level here. But he's still young, which is something that FSU likes. They like the fact that he's got a lot of experience under his belt, despite only being in his second year of college football. He has 3 more years left, being a redshirt. He's entering his redshirt sophomore year, so they like all that. They like the size. They've had good reports on his character and grades. I spoke with some people who were around him on his visit yesterday, and they spoke highly of just him as a person and said that he's charismatic, and they like being around him on the visit. So a lot of positive reviews, and he becomes the first commitment for Florida State in the portal, and I think it's one that makes sense. And it, I think something that we'll continue to dig on, but something that matters when we're trying to evaluate, whether a portal get is a good one, I think is obviously the financial commitment. I have not heard the specifics to what they're committing here, but I did, kind of check in on this, and it sounded like the original price that was, kind of considered high for him. I think it went down from that, but I don't know, the actual specifics to it.
I can confirm that it went down. Seems like a decent value for a guy you pencil in as your starting cornerback. I think between him and Jabril Rawls, though, it's going to be close to $2 million, which is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Jabril got paid.
In 11 games last season at South Alabama, he had 32 tackles, 22 solo, 2.5 tackles for loss, 2 picks, also 13 pass breakups. He led the team in both picks and pass breakups.
Yeah, he led the Sun Belt in pass breakups as well.
One thing I do like about him is he seems to be willingly physical, which is something I think they lacked last year with one of their starting corners, and it wasn't Jabril Rawls.
His run defense grade, not great, is 47.5, but the coverage grade per PFF, 82.0. Take all that with a grain of salt, but there's a pretty big discrepancy there. Interesting take. I think that's a high variance guy. It could be really good for you.
Feels like a bit of a gambler at the cornerback spot, but you can also kind of coach that out of a kid. But you also want that to a degree because some of those plays turn into the plays that win you games, but you want them also not to turn into the plays that lose you games. And I think that's the balancing act you have to have with somebody who has the willingness to be aggressive to the ball and aggressive to the play.
Chris, the one last name I want us to get to, who are you waiting out for right now specifically?
Well, I mean, the quarterbacks are obviously the headliners today. Trey Wisner, who's coming in as running back, is another one. John Walker, who was in here yesterday.
All right. That's John Walker is who I thought we would go to. I thought that was obvious. Is that on Zach? Is that on me or Chris? Whose fault?
I think Chris is just running through the list in his head.
Yeah, Zach knows how I
Yeah.
operate. Plus, everybody cares more about quarterbacks than any other position ever in the history of football.
Yeah, I know, but I just assumed that okay. Any 3, 2, 1. John Walker, who probably going to be like $1 million player, and your Daryl Jackson replacement, and who you're trying to battle Ohio State and Clemson and other schools for to keep fend them off from going on campus, is on campus currently. And you were talking to him before he departs. I thought that was obvious. That's my fault. Go ahead, Christopher. What do we know about John Walker?
I mean, you kind of gave a nice summation there of he's a big body interior defensive lineman who's played at a really high level at points in his career. He's coming from UCF. He's someone that they value immensely. He's someone that they rush to get in first. He came in yesterday, came in with multiple other people among his family and whatnot. And yeah, he's one that would make a big dent in the list of who do you have to replace? What do you desperately need? What do you need starter level capable players at? And he's one of those. After if you were able to attain him, your next movement on defense, now that you got cornerback shored up and with a couple safeties potentially coming back, it's probably a high level edge rusher is what you're moving on to. And again, that's another expensive box to check off, but getting the interior guy allows you to be a little bit more understanding of where you're working from a financial ramification standpoint, and also who might play well off of a guy like John Walker and the other primary pieces you believe you have on your defensive line.
It feels like John Walker's a really important piece for them. They're working on some other defensive tackles that Zach has mentioned before, but like this is probably like no one's built quite like him. He fits very much so that nose tackle role if you're trying to continue implementing some level of a 3-down lineman principle sometimes depending on matchup and week to week. But yeah, he offers that. There's not a whole lot of other people built like him in the transfer portal right now. Anything else, Zach, that you want to add on that recruitment or any other players as well as we try to get out of here? Keep us under 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, well, the big thing with John Walker is that he's currently scheduled to go to Ohio State tomorrow on Monday. So, if you're gonna try to lock this recruitment up, you want to do it before he leaves campus today, and not let him or have him go take other visits, especially to a school like Ohio State. I've heard Clemson's involved potentially as well. This feels like one Florida State can land, but yeah, I mean, they're just gonna have to work out all the details. It is good that he stayed overnight, and that he's continuing to be around the staff this morning, from what I've heard, and that's all positive. But it only really matters if you can get the deal done, and that's what they need to do with John Walker. I think you mentioned a good point, Brendan. There's not a robust market of high level defensive, interior defensive line talent. This is a guy that they're ultra familiar with. He's a good player. They need to land him. This feels like one of their must get players in the portal as of now, and I'm interested to see whether they can get the deal done today on Sunday.
Feels like Lee Hunter to me last year, except for the difference was you had Daryl Jackson last year, so you knew the financial commitment probably couldn't be there for two guys of that caliber. You don't have Daryl Jackson anymore, and you do have some young pieces you like on your D line, but I don't think you have anybody that you sort of put as a 1A. I mean, Daniel Lyons is the most experienced player returning on the interior of the defensive line, and while he was a good player this past season, that's all he was. I think the belief is that John Walker would far exceed that.
Yeah, I think it's just to me, it's just like a build thing. Like he's what, 6'5", 320.
Yeah, he looks like a cinder block on two legs. He's a large kid.
And there's other some decent interior defensive linemen who I like in this cycle, but there's not that type of build. It's like the Arkansas nose. There's not a whole lot of. There's probably a half dozen guys who are competent at that size.
So the Arkansas kid Siegler, who you referenced, I think he is equally valuable to them because he's a little bit more. He's not brain and fist, but he's more active legs, get downhill, aggressive. I think Walker's a bit more consume the middle, eat up space, free up other people.
Sorry, because I meant not to confuse our audience. I meant there's an Arkansas, actual Arkansas nose tackle. You're mentioning the Arkansas State tackle. Yeah, I like him a lot as far as an interior pass rusher type. Braden Fisk is going to be the obvious comp because it's a white interior defensive lineman coming up from the group of 6, and he moves well. He's not built quite like Braden. I don't think he's quite as athletic, but he's still good. Yeah, John Walker, I like. I don't love like Lee Hunter. I also shit that kid. Ooh, well, I just said it. Yeah, he's really good. That's a badass player, and we saw that play out this season. I think John Walker still got a lot of like he has to kind of come into his own physically, and he's just not dominant like Lee Hunter was. But anyways, that's still a above average plus player for you in the middle of the defensive line, who you want to try to get because again that's there's far and few between. And just in the portal, humanity guys that look like that and have that type of size. Yeah, so that's there's some other names I would love for us to get to. I think we just need to kind of keep it short though, guys. And Chris is on the bench already. Zach and I have stuff to do. Right? Anything else, real quick, Zach? I'll give you a minute before we get out of here.
Yeah, I mean they hosted Rocky Beers. I mean we got to talk about Rocky.
That was a hell of a name.
That was
Rowdy Beers, his brother.
That was a Brendan Sonnone special report on No
Bro,
Sleep
I broke a Rocky Beers story and a long snapper story. I'm good. Like that was my day yesterday.
Yeah, you killed
and
it.
I tried to put DJ Lagway's name out first, but you guys kind of prevented me from doing that. So
whoopsies.
Sorry, it felt weird.
It did feel weird. I'm being passive aggressive when I say that. It did feel weird. I understood the hesitation. Rocky Beers. What?
He caught 7 touchdowns last year, and he's a stud. No, I mean he's a good tight end option for them. I think one of their better ones in the portal right now, and they get him on campus first. I did talk to his agent, who said that he is maybe taking 1 to 2 more visits. It sounds like that's also FSU's what they're expecting from him. I don't know, whether that's going to come true or not. I mean, we've seen guys say they're going to take more visits and then commit to the place they visited first soon after. I mean, it was funny that the Nehemiah Chandler thing, like you interviewed him, and then like 5 minutes after you interviewed him.
Dude, it was not 5 minutes. I walked back
minutes.
to my car to start transcribe, and it was posted by the time.
Yeah, I couldn't even start transcribing the interview you sent me. Like it was just posted. So
he said he was gonna pray to God about it and hoped it was Florida State. I mean, I guess
he did.
That all just happened. The prayer happened, and yeah, the prayer happened. It was quick.
He went to the express lane with God.
I mean, that's kind of the main other one. There's some other guys on campus.
The offensive lineman, I think, real quick.
Brian Williams, he's in. He got here last evening. Jarvis Lee, who's a safety type from USF, is another kid that's in today that I'm excited about. I think
they had the James Madison safety too, so that does seem like they are looking for a third safety type.
I think the James Madison kid's going to end up at UCLA with Bob Chesney.
D-Ray gets his revenge.
Yeah. No, I think
no, it's not. We got to do quarterbacks.
I think Jarvis Lee is definitely one to watch at safety. He played corner some last year, but then kind of transitioned into more of a safety role in the back half of the season per his like PFF assignment stuff. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like FSU is high on him, but Auburn's also trying to make a play there with Alex Golish, obviously now at Auburn, formerly at USF, with Jarvis Lee. And the offensive lineman, Brian Williams, he's the number 4 ranked offensive tackle in the portal right now, 93 grade. So that was interesting. But yeah, it sounds like if things go well on the visit that that Florida State is in a really good spot to land him. I entered a crystal ball in FSU's favor for Louisiana offensive tackle Brian Williams.
Zach busting out portal rankings, and I'm over here like can't do it.
Hey, Omar Graham, I wonder if he's still the number 1 linebacker in the portal. That would be a huge retention.
I did watch Bright Williams, and I was before I knew what the ranking, I was not super.
Don't say that.
I had like an 86 is what I would have put on.
Well, good thing Brendan's not doing the
ranking. I will say this. I think Herb Hand proved that he deserves a little bit of credit for what he's looking for on the offensive line in the portal. With what
he has bought trust. Yeah.
Right.
It feels like this is not – it doesn't feel like it's the same level of floor that they brought in last year. Now, like Luke Pettibon caught us by surprise. Like that was a later one in the cycle too. Micah Pettis was a name they had to work aggressively for. But that was one we had heard earlier on. Yeah, I mean they're bringing like SEC, ACC multi-year starters, and now we're looking at you guys with like 1 year experience or 1.5 years of experience at the Sun Belt. It just feels different. They were working on getting the UConn offensive lineman. Was it Ben Morawski? And that's no longer happening. I liked him. I thought he'd been good, but like the caliber of school he's going to, not doesn't look like he pushed past FSU. Like in terms of
Michigan
weight
State,
class.
Penn State. I forget who else I've seen him attached to.
Oklahoma State and UCF, I think. I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, that's a pretty big position for you to fill out. Listen, especially if you're bringing in DJ Lagway, like that's got to be sharp. Like he's not an elite runner of the football at this point to where he's going to have to be creating.
That's something that
piss missile, throw the ball downfield quickly, but.
That's also something to note with Lagway is like I feel like he was surrounded by really good options this past year, both on the O-line and at receiver and at running back.
O-line kind of sucked watching.
They got banged up as the year went on, though, which is part of the reason Vernell Brown became like their primary guy because he was one to stay healthy more than most.
I mean, they did have a really good. I mean, obviously a great run game.
I agree with you. U.S. offensive skill is a better group than he would be walking into here overall now. Though I do like his top 3 receivers here, presuming McCoy sticks, which at this point it seems like he's going to.
The Texas running back, that'll be the last name to get into because FSU does seem, at this point, pretty hell-bent on bringing in a running back who will be their bell cow. Like, it just does not seem like they're willing to hand it off to Chroma or Sam Singleton at this point. I think
I'm going to go host style here. Zach, why do you think that is?
I think it's the Cam Martin effect. I think you brought in a new running back coach who has not recruited a single running back on the roster. So he has had no say in who he's inherited, obviously. Wasn't able to sign up a high school prospect because, he's brought in after that class. And then he was, this is his portal window. So it makes sense that Florida State would give him the opportunity to potentially bring in a running back of his own choosing. So I think that's part to do with it. And also, I mean, they kind of showed you last year that they weren't really ready to hand the reins of the running game to either Sam Singleton or Chroma. Like, yes, Sam Singleton did become the starter later in the year, but it wasn't like he was getting a huge bulk of the carries. I mean, they were still splitting it up amongst the 5 or 6 running back rotation that it seemed like they had week to week. And then Chroma never really emerged as a true number 1. That's not to say that he can't in the future, but they just didn't really show the willingness to do that with him last year. So, yeah, I mean, they turned to Trey Wisner. That seems like their top running back target. I think before they were looking at Hollywood Smothers. He was supposed to come in for a visit this weekend, but that was canceled. Sounds like something to do with money in the agent world there. But yeah, I mean, Trey Wisner ran for over 1,000 yards in the SEC in 2024. He led Texas in rushing this past year with around 600 yards rushing in what was a kind of a disjointed Texas offense, at least in the early to middle part of the year. And he's also a threat in the receiving game too. So there's a lot to like with Wisner. I think there's some question as to his long speed, but he does a lot else pretty well. And, I think the optimism is that, if he was able to put up that kind of production in the SEC, what can he do in the ACC? So FSU's bringing him in on Sunday evening, and sounds like Ole Miss is also involved.
Cool. This has been an interesting start to the window so far. I said 1 more minute, and we've gone an extra 8, but that's on me.
That's what people deserve.
They do, an extra 8 minutes. I was going to make a joke, kid show. Nope, moving on. All right, that's it, guys. I think we're good, right? Right? Anything else before we get out of here?
I really wish we got to saw Chris run out of the car and try to go interview someone.
That would be great. DJ, I'm your biggest fan.